I'm here with Lance Nielsen, Supervisor of Music for Lincoln Public Schools in Lincoln, Nebraska, for our next ESSER chat session. Lance, thank you so much for joining me today.
You bet, my pleasure.
So, Lance, as I understand it, you've had some success with ESSER funding in your district, but before we get to that, to kind of set the table, tell us a little bit about Lincoln Public Schools and music education and what's happening with your district.
Well, our district's about 40,000 students, and we have K through 12 music we start with beginning band in 5th grade and beginning strings in 4th grade. And with a program that goes all the way through high school. We've been able to, through the pandemic year last year, to be in person and doing all the protocols that we needed to do to be able to do music. We were hybrid, so we had students on Zoom and students in person, which was, I'm going to admit, very challenging for our teachers, but we got through that piece of it. This year, we were very excited to start the year kind of back to normal. We did do a mask for K through 6 because they're not vaccinated yet. However, as of today, we've actually had to put the mask back on for everybody because we're just seeing the spikes, which I think a lot of communities around the country are starting to see as well. So we just got to get ahead of this, and we're hoping that this will be short term and turn that around. But we've been a best communities for music education through the NAM Foundation for the past 5 years. So we're very proud of that, of some of the great community connections that we have made. And those community connections was really helpful a year ago when we did need these extra masks. We actually put out a plea to our community if they would be willing to make some for us. And we had templates for all the different instruments. And we had an overwhelming number of masks come in just by people just making them. This was their hobby, if there were sewers or just wanted to help out. So that was just, again, a great success story of how we made some connections with our community.
Wonderful. No, great advocacy efforts within your district there. That's amazing to hear. And yeah, we're all going to get ahead of this. And, the hope is with the vaccine and everything that things will right the trajectory, so to speak. One of the topics that's been big in music education for the past year has been the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, the ESSER funding. And as I understand it, your district has had some success in being able to tap into that as a resource to support music education. Would you mind sharing with our listeners kind of how you guys went about that process and how that had an impact on your programs?
Yes. Well, obviously, the ESSER 1 funds was really just to get us going last year, right? So a lot of the PPE that we needed to make our classroom safe was already covered. But the ESSER 2 funds in the spring, we started to look at some of our needs. And one of those was, how are we going to do beginning band recruitment? Because we wanted to get these kids back into the band room. So we did use our ESSER funds to get the mouthpiece kits. And I bought enough of those for all of my itinerant teachers. So they each had their own classroom set. So they were able to, then each student would have their own during the course of the day. And then they would be able to then clean them in the evening. So we put that in as a proposal, and it was we received them and it was great. We had them and we were able to use them in the spring. I also made sure I had some for my middle school teachers because again, we start in 5th grade and then the students move on to middle school in 6th grade. So we really are focusing on those 6th graders this year because there were probably a lot of students who didn't start last year. We're trying to go after them this year. So I wanted to make sure that my middle school teachers had those as well. Another one we did was during the pandemic, especially when that first summer, we had a lot of instruments out when we closed down in 2020 and we were trying to get them back. And we did a pretty good job. We had a few that just, they fell through the cracks or families just moved out of state during that time. And so the instrument did not get back to us. So we used some of that ESSER money to also replace those lost instruments. Again, we didn't have very many, which I was very happy about, but we were glad that we were able to have money to replace it.
Oh, that's amazing. What was the process for you guys in being able to get to the ESSER funding? Who are the people in the administration, or what was the kind of chain of command that you had to go through to be a part of that planning process?
we're a district that was kind of unique. We have actually a whole federal programs department. And so this, since this is federal money, it all goes through the federal program. So I submitted my proposals to the director of instruction, who oversees the whole curriculum department. And then they went on to our federal programs, and then they would do the ordering for us. So it was really just me knowing who to go through as far as the steps. And that's how we do that here. So they did all the ordering. I had everything ready to go for them. And then they did the approval and did the ordering for us. So we made sure that funding came through that department.
Wonderful. Well, that's great to hear that it was such a great efficient process for you. Now, there's a lot of educators and folks in other districts looking at ESSER funding, and maybe it's a little bit of a mystery to them. What advice do you have for them as to how you went about the ESSER process and how they could approach it as well to support their programs?
The number one thing is to find out who is overseeing that federal money. So there's someone in your school district, depending on your size. Now, again, with a large school district like Lincoln, we have a department and we have a director of the federal program. So I know who that person is. If you're in a smaller school district and you don't have an arts administrator, you really need to go, probably talk to your principal, maybe go to the superintendent's office. It's probably someone in the superintendent's office, is my guess, that is assigned to oversee all the federal funds. And that also, includes free and reduced lunch and that kind of stuff. So those are the people you want to find out and sit down and have those conversations with them. And they're the ones you want to pitch your idea to.
Wonderful, Lance. Well, I appreciate you kind of sharing the behind the scenes of your district and ESSER funding. Greatly appreciate all you've done for music education for many years, and for what you're doing for all those wonderful students in Lincoln, Nebraska. So thank you for your time today, Lance, and all the best of luck to you and the folks at the Lincoln Public School District.
Thank you very much.